All right, perfect. So we are now recording, and we will share this recording out to everyone so that you guys can go back and review. That way, if you have any questions or you forgot something that was mentioned or discussed today, you'll have something to go back and reference. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and cut my camera off. Share screen. All right. So Vanessa, are we good to go?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so you guys see this resume. So it says federal resume. It talks about the Southern region. Reason why is because I pulled this resume guide from the Southern region where I used to work. I was one of the ones that developed this resume guide. And so I continue to use it because it is a great guide to help someone to develop their federal resume. So we're just going to scroll down and everyone will get a copy of this federal resume guide. So I'm going to zoom in just to make sure you guys can see it really well on the screen. So this resume guide starts with a checklist. And in this checklist, it just kind of goes through some of the things that you should be mindful of as you develop your resume. Some of the things that should consider. It talks about things that are important or necessary or required to have on your resume, and then some of those things that can be optional because a lot of times people are just not sure what's optional and what's not. And so we're not going to go by every bullet. I'm going to just point out some of these things here in every section. So this first one, just looking at overall resume review, making sure that you pay attention to the font and being consistent. You don't want to have a resume that has 5 different fonts all on your one resume trying to be creative. With a federal resume, you don't have to get that creative. With regular resumes, sometimes you do have to get creative so that on your one page, certain things pop out to those hiring managers, but you don't have to do that with a federal resume. Make sure that it looks very consistent throughout your resume. Everything is properly aligned. Again, you're using the right font sizes. You are limiting your use of bolding and underlining unless it's for those key headers for your each one of your sections. Again, it talks about how your federal resume can be as long as you need it to be, and making sure that you are highlighting your knowledge, skills, and abilities. Call those KSAs, which you will also see in job announcements for each position that's advertised. One of the great things about a federal resume, like we said, it has no page limit. So you have the opportunity to talk about everything that you've done that can help qualify you for the position. I always tell people the more information you give HR, the better they can help qualify you for the specific GS level in which you qualify for. When you start taking out stuff to limit your resume, you might take out something that they could have used to help qualify you for a higher grade. So you never know exactly what's going to be used. So you want to make sure you include everything, all of your experiences, and making sure that you, yes, tailor your resume, but making sure that you also talk about some of those skill sets that you have that may not be directly related to the position that you're applying for. I always have people to review it because sometimes when your eyes have looked at the same letters and the same words, same paragraph, you're gonna miss things. So always get a new some new eyes on it, fresh set of eyes so that they can catch some of those errors that you might not have caught the first, second, and third time that you went through your resume yourself. All right, your header section, making sure that you have your name as the largest words on your resume and having your all of your contact information up there at the top. Um, One thing that I have seen, even though we have it here that you can include your home address and stuff, I have seen where people are not really providing that type of information anymore. And unless the one thing that you can always kind of go back to with USA Jobs, if you're going to be applying through USA Jobs, is go to their resume section, which we'll go to later and talk about more later. But in that resume section, it'll tell you about what's required and what's not required most times on your federal resume. Um, the one thing that I do want to kind of discuss here, and you guys might be like, okay, why do we have to talk about this, Sylvia? We're all grown here. We're all adults. We know to have a professional email. You would think that, right? And so a lot of times you have to remember if someone is talking about something in a presentation, it's because it's already happened. So make sure that your email address is professional. It doesn't need to be hip hop Joe. It doesn't need to be I love the ladies at gmail.com. None of that. Like, make sure that it's your first and last name or your first name, like something professional. And another good tip is to not use your school email address or your government email address. And the reason why is because some of those school email addresses, unless you have verified that it's not going to expire, a lot of the school email addresses will expire after a certain amount of years after you have graduated or you're no longer attending that university. Some of them have like a 2 or 3 year expiration. And so you don't want to be utilizing a resume that is being circulated with outdated information. So a lot of us will continue to use our same personal email addresses for our entire lives. So you're going to want to use that one. And the other thing about your federal email address is that you're not going to always be in the RA program. So if there's any type of gap of employment and you may not have access to your federal government email, then you could be missing out on opportunities. So again, find yourself your own professional, personal email and utilize that for your resume that's going to be circulating a lot. So the next section we're going to talk about is optional. And so this optional section, totally up to you if you want to have it. We've seen it being called professional summary, skills, introduction, overview, all kind of names, right? And so it's up to you if you want to have like this introductory paragraph before you go into your resume that highlights some of those skill sets or highlight some of those highlights within your career, some of your qualifications or whatever you would like to just really grab the attention of that hiring manager. It's up to you if you want to have that. So if you do have it, make sure that it is worth the read. Make sure that you really are specifically highlighting those expertise or those experiences or skill sets that are very important. You know, maybe you read through the announcement and they talked about certain things that that manager would be looking for, and you wanted to make sure that you pop it there. And then later on, they can find more information about that particular experience that you have in your resume as it ties to that job. But maybe you want to have it bolded up there at the top. Again, totally up to you. And while I'm talking about that, I might as well talk about cover letters. Is a cover letter required? No, it's not. It's optional. It is suggested, but it's also optional. And one of the differences is that of a cover letter and your introductory or summary statement on your resume is that that summary is going to be, it needs to be really short. Your cover letter can be a entire page. It can be a whole page of information, and you don't want your cover letter to be exactly what's going to be on your resume. You want it to be kind of an introduction to your resume. So you want to grab that attention of that hiring manager to make them want to learn more about you from your resume. So you can talk about the agency, like tie it all together, because you can't really talk about certain things in your resume the way you can in a cover letter. So in your cover letter, you might want to give them some background information about yourself and how that led to your passion or your interest in applying for that position or for that agency or that department. And you can say something along the lines of, okay, I'll use myself for an example. So in my cover letter, maybe I talk about how when I was in college, I was an ambassador for the university and how I really enjoyed, working with people and, giving them tours around campus and really highlighting the university to increase recruitment. And guess what? I became a recruiter in the Forest Service. So when I was applying for that job, I talked about how I developed that passion for recruitment and working with people to develop from college. And so I tied that in. And so I didn't go all into details because guess what? They were able to get the dates. They were able to get all the extra detailed information from my resume, but I just kind of introduced it. And so a lot of times I see on cover letters, people talk about everything that they have done, and then you go to their resume, you see exactly what they talked about word for word, and you're like, okay, that's a little repetitive. You don't want to say that, yes, I worked for the USDA from November 2014 to December of 2016 doing X, Y, and Z. That's not what you want to do. You want to tell a story. So again, cover letters, they are optional. They're suggested, but they are not required. But if you're going to have it, make sure it's good. Make sure it's worth the read. And I will stop and check the chat box for questions in just a minute. I want to get through these checklists first. So number 4, it talks about the experience section. This is where you want to talk about your duties, your responsibilities, and all of that stuff, and how you will be evaluated for that particular job. This is where you want to put all those buzz and keywords that we talked about, that specialized experience. Every job that's advertised on USA Jobs will have a section where it talks about those skill sets and it talks about the responsibilities, but it also has an additional section where it talks about the specialized skills. And that is the key piece that you want to make sure that you incorporate in your resume. And again, I'll show you guys where to find that information on USA Jobs. And I know I keep talking about USA Jobs, and a lot of you are probably thinking, okay, I have direct hire authority. Why do we have to talk about USA Jobs? It's important to talk about USA Jobs because you can go to USA Jobs and pull an announcement of a position that you want to be considered for. And because you're not really applying, you still want to use those buzz and keywords from that announcement to beef up your resume so that when someone wants to hire you using the DHA, your resume is still up to par. Your resume still includes those buzz and keywords because HR still has to qualify you. So even though you may not be going through USA Jobs to be considered for a position, you still have to go through qualifications with HR. And so you still have to have those buzz and keywords on your resume. So that's the reason why I keep bringing up USA Jobs, because that's the easy way to go up and pull up a job that, outlines those skill sets and things that you need to speak on. You want to talk about using quantitative and qualitative descriptions, putting numbers on things. If you are doing surveys or something, how many surveys, how many, I used to do exams, standing exams when I was a forester. So how many standing exams have you did? How many acreages have you covered in your experience? So really throwing numbers on things. People love to see numbers. If you manage budgets, how much money are you managing within your program area? Making sure that you list your experiences in reverse chronological order, making sure that you are just being as detailed as possible, listing out your job title, the company. Do not use seasons, do not use summer, do not use fall. Make sure that you clearly have the month and the year in which you are working in a position. It doesn't matter if it was your full-time job or a volunteer work or study abroad. It does not matter. Do not use season. Always use your month and years. Hours you work per week, as well as your supervisor information. So you need your supervisor information in that part where it talks about okay to contact, not okay to contact me first. It is required. And that's important. And never feel like just because you put not okay to contact or contact me first, that's going to be frowned upon. It's not. We understand that sometimes when you are going to be, changing careers or going from one position to another, that's just sensitive information, and it's okay for us to respect you and your supervisor by contacting you first to let you know, okay, I'm about to contact your supervisor for a reference. And that way you can have that opportunity to have that conversation with your supervisor prior to and say, hey, I wasn't sure if I was going to be considered, but I'm letting you know now that I am applying for a job or I'm being considered for a position, you may be contacted. And you can have that conversation with them to prep them before they're being contacted. So just know that it is okay to put that there, and we do need to know that. And it might be also a situation where you need to explain it. Maybe that company went out of business. Maybe that supervisor that you had no longer works there. And so you want someone to contact you first so that you can provide that level of explanation instead of not providing it at all. All right, so I just have a few more sections to go through and then I'm going to pause for questions. So next is going to be your volunteer or your related experience section. Here's where you want to talk about those experiences that could have been like unpaid internships, community service, volunteer work. If you were in college or part of a student organization and you guys did some volunteer work, you can use that. Let's say you were in your senior year of college and you had to participate in a capstone project and you did some high level project work. Guess what? You can still use those experiences as well. So to give an example, I was a forester. I went to school for forestry management, and in my last semester of college, I had to create a entire management plan where I worked with the landowner, visited his land a few times out the week, every week for the entire semester, doing stand exams, inventory, all of that stuff, and I had to create this management plan. Well, all of that are still forestry work, still things that a forester would do. And so I was able to utilize that experience for that entire semester and put that stuff on my resume to help qualify me. So just wanted to give you guys an example. So just think about anything that you might have did and any previous work assignments, and make sure that you provide the level of information that we need to see where it comes from. So if it was from a class, You can put your university title. You can put that class title. You can put, again, don't put the semester, but put August through December or January through May, whatever those semester dates were, and as well as the hours that you work. Even if it was volunteer work and it was 10 hours a week or maybe fluctuated, you can put 15 to 20 hours a week that you worked on that. Specialized recognition leadership. This is where you want to highlight those clubs and organizations. They don't have to just be job related. They could be within a job. They could be within your university. They could be within your community. Any type of involvement that you might have is always good to show, especially those organizations that also promote diversity and inclusion. So maybe you were a part of a minority organization in school, or since joining the Forest Service as an RA, maybe you have been involved in WePo trainings or something like that. And so, if you are involved in any of those clubs or organizations, you're going to want to list out that stuff. And your specialized experience section, training, that's another important section. If you have obtained certain certifications while in your RA-ship or in another position, you want to list out that stuff. Make sure that you provide the dates as well. Even if that training has expired and you need a refresher, still list it. And the reason why is because if I was a hiring manager and I know that I needed someone to be a COR, which is the contracting officer representative, and I see that you've had it, you just need a refresher. Well, guess what? It's easier for me to provide that refresher than it would be for me to send someone to a full blown out COR training. So I would be like, okay, I want to hire this person because they just need a refresher versus someone, again, that needs to be sent to a whole week or 2 week long training to be certified. So again, if it has expired, make sure you still list it and you can just put, that expiration date so that someone will see that you just need a refresher. But list out all of your trainings, even stuff like CPR, first aid, defensive driving, OHV, it doesn't matter. Any training certifications you have, list that stuff out. The last two sections, education. And even though education is number 8 on this list, it does not matter. It can be like your number 1 thing. And because education is such a important piece, but it's such a small piece, it really can go down here or it can go to the top, but it's very important. So your education piece, you want to make sure that you have your degree type. You want to make sure you have your university and the month and the year that you completed your education, as well as your GPA, if it's a good one. Now, what I will say is that some job announcement on USA Jobs will ask for your GPA, some will not. And if you know that you had somewhat of a challenge in college and maybe your GPA is not something that you want to share up front, then don't list it unless it says that it's required. If not, take it off. Let us come find it when we have to look at your transcript, right? So that's all I'll say about that. You don't have to list out your courses. You don't have to list out your accomplishments from that university. That's what you have the other sections for. And when you're applying for a job, we're going to utilize your transcript to see what courses that you took. So you don't have to list out your courses on your resume because we're going to need your transcript before we can hire you in any position anyway. So we'll use that document to validate those courses that you took. Yeah, that's really all you need to know for education. And lastly, your references. So for your references, you want to have 3 to 5 professional references, not personal references, because to be honest, you guys, no one uses personal references anymore. Of course, they're going to talk all great things about you, as they should, because if not, then you don't want to have them as your reference anyways. But we're going to use professional references because we want to talk about, your work ethic. We want to talk about how, you may be a leader or a good team. You work good as a team member. We want to know those kind of things. Do you meet deadlines? And so we need to know that from, again, people that have seen you in a professional setting. So these professional references can be your supervisor. That can be someone on your staff or on your team that you're working with. They can be a colleague. They can be a professor that you had, a club advisor that you had in an organization that you were a part of. Again, anyone that can speak on your professionalism. And one other tip of advice I would give you is that anyone that you have as your reference, make sure you let them know when you are applying for jobs. And the reason why is because if they get called and you did an internship with their company 3 years ago, chances are you're not the only intern. And while you guys may have established a great relationship and worked on some great projects together, you cannot expect them to always remember everything. So it's always good practice to make sure you have that conversation with them. Say, hey, you guys, I applied for this position. My references, I mean, the job may be calling you. If you don't mind, can you speak about that COVID replacement project that I worked on with you guys? Could you speak about that bridge replacement that I did with you guys during my internship? I think that would be great to share that experience with this hiring manager for the position that I applied for. So that's, again, just an example. Instead of them giving that call and they're like, oh, yeah, they were great that I remember, but I really can't give you any details because I don't remember exactly what we worked on. So again, it's all to help you. So you got to help yourself in this. And so the next part of this resume guide are going to be some examples. So before I go into the examples, I'm going to stop sharing screen and see if there's any questions just about the checklist part before I continue. And Vanessa, you might have to help me to navigate the questions in case it was a lot of them. Let me see. I'm going to go back up. Okay. All right. So I only see 2 questions. So what would you consider a GPA worth sharing? I wouldn't go past 3.0. You know, that's just me. But for sure, nothing past a 2.5. If you got anything lower than 2.5, let us come find it. All right. Let us do our research through your transcript to find that GPA. I've been asked to give at least 2 personal references for several USA jobs posted in addition to. That's interesting. Was it with the Forest Service or was it with different agencies or departments, Anna? If you could just share that. And so one thing to note is that as you apply on USA Jobs for different departments, different agencies, different hiring managers, you will see some differences. And that's the reason why I kept going back to, I'm giving you guys like general information about federal resumes, but I'm also going to show you on USA Jobs in their resume section how sometimes certain things are required. And so if there's something that's listed there that's required, make sure you make that update in your resume if it's not there, because if it's required and it says it on that announcement and you don't have it, they can disqualify you just for that part alone. So always be mindful that whatever resume you're using, always check that resume section to make sure that you have everything that they're asking for on your resume, because that stuff can change. A lot of stuff can change by each announcement. So always be on the safe side and check that announcement. All right, so you said different agencies, not USFS. Okay, yeah. So again, things can change by the agency, by the department. Again, if you don't remember nothing else, check the resume section of the job announcement. Should we use jobs that aren't really related to the specific career and work experience? Jobs in retail, food service. Great question. Yes, you can. So what I would say is you can mention it because we want to see your experiences, especially if it was something that you did while you were a college student, because that can tell us a lot of things. A lot of times people look at unrelated experiences and think, oh, it's not related, I don't need to have it. Well, there are transferable skills, you guys, that we can get that you might have attained from those experiences that would be useful to us. You know, we might feel like you are a great asset to our team based off some things that you did working at McDonald's or working at Hollister or somewhere else. When I was in college, I had a job at BB, which was a clothing store, and it was based on clientele. So I got some experiences there that people that worked at other stores may not have gotten. It was relationship building, it was teamwork, it was leadership, a lot of those things. And I was also balancing a schedule there as well as my school schedule. So there's time management. So there's a lot of things, like I said, that you can pick up that are transferable skills that are important to us. So never think that just because it was not directly related, that it's not useful. So you just have to think about, what did I do in that job that could be a great transferable skill or experience that I can share that would still be useful to help me. So you just got to think about it that way. So never not include it just because it's not directly related. Great question. Will the document checklist be shared via email with a copy? Yes. The document that I'm going over with the checklist and the examples will definitely be shared with everyone. All of you guys will have it. We want you to utilize it to create your own federal resume and make sure that you are good to go. You can also, another thing to note is that USA Jobs has a resume builder that you guys can use as well. I always tell people, if you have no idea what needs to go into a resume and you've never been through a session about federal resumes, then you can go to USA Jobs and do the resume builder, and it's going to create a resume for you based off the information that you provide. However, what I will say, that there's no true flexibility with that resume builder. It's going to develop it and it all looks the same. Everybody's resume looks the same. There's no flexibility to be creative. It's just going to kind of lump things in certain sections. Now, it will provide structure, it will provide consistency, but it may not be what you want and need. So I always tell people, if you want to use a resume builder, use it, take that information, and then create your own from that information. Because at least you know that you have everything we need on your resume, but then you can kind of, put your own little twist and spin to it to make it your own. Are they looking at the gaps, especially near COVID? Okay, so I would say that COVID has giving people a level of grace that they may not have gotten prior to. Sometimes when you have too much of a gap or too large of a gap between your work experiences or education and work, sometimes it can be questionable, but guess what? You can use your cover letter for that. So if there is a gap of experience or a gap of education and experience, then you're going to want to definitely have a cover letter so that you can explain that gap before they get to your resume and see it. Or if they see it, they can go back to your cover letter and have something to reference, because they may not call you, right? If you don't have a cover letter and they see this gap, and for them, they're like, I don't know what this person been doing for the last 3 years or 2 years. It could be questionable. Are they going to be ready to hit the ground running in a position? But on your cover letter, if you told them due to COVID, you had to relocate to help with your family business in which you were able to acquire X, Y, and Z type of skill set, and now you're ready to get back into your professional field, guess what? Now they know. There's no question, right? So you got to tell the story for them to understand what they're about to see in your resume. So hopefully that helps. Ashley, if not, drop some more stuff into the chat. Also, if we played sports in college, should we add that? And if so, what section should we put that in? So in that organization section, or that the part where it show like organizations or clubs, you can put that in there. And yes, it is great to show that you were on a sports team. Now, again, you don't have to go all into detail about what position you played and all that. However, if you were on if you were an athlete on a team, especially in college, and then you might have had a job, that's time management to the max, because everyone knows that athletes are very limited on their time and being able to do all these other things. So if you were an athlete and you was involved in clubs or organizations, and you maybe had a little job or you did volunteer work, all on top of keeping good grades, that who wouldn't want that person, right? And so yes, make sure that you provide that. You can just put what your sport was, especially if you held a leadership role on your team. Maybe you were the team captain. That's always good to show as well. So yes, you can include that type of information on your resume. All right, so I think that got all of those quick questions. So now I'm going to turn my camera back off and pull the examples back up. I'm going to go through those examples. They're going to pause for questions again, okay? Let's see, wait, I have one more question before I do that. This is the first government experience I've had. How can I fit the details to cross over to other positions? So even though this may be your first and your only government experience, and your other jobs were with private sector companies or something totally unrelated, it's okay. Again, just highlight what was important to that particular position. And then for this position, you're going to want to highlight, again, things that are related, and even things that may not be related, but they are good transferable skills. And so let me try to give you an example. If you want to tell me what your position is, I'll give you like a real example for your position. So if you want to drop what your position is, then maybe I can give you a real example. If not, I'll give you my own example. Okay, so my own example, I was a forester, like I said. Okay, special uses. All right. So special uses. So special uses really a lot of times fall kind of like in the recreation arena. And so let's say that you have this current special uses experience, but then your job before that was at Subway, or it was at the university. Again, special uses, you have to coordinate with other people. It's not like a forester where I'm outside dealing with trees all day and I don't really have to discuss things with people. are mostly in the woods. Special uses, you have to coordinate with a lot of people. You got agreements and things that you're looking at. And so you have to be a people person. So if you had a position prior to this that allowed you to showcase customer service or teamwork and stuff like that, then you want to highlight those experiences and those skill sets. Again, it may not be directly related, but it is still something that's very necessary to help you be successful in that position. So I hope that helps. So again, it can always be different. It just really depends on what those jobs are. All right, going back to sharing. Okay, so this first example is Smokey Bear Jr. He has his information at the top, Washington, D.C. The first example I'm going to go through all the way through, and the other ones we're just going to scan them real quick. Washington, D.C. has his phone number and his email address, right? Great. We're going to go on down, career summary. And he talks about how he was a skilled forestry technician with 3 seasons of experience performing recreation, aerial work as part of a team during busy summer seasons. Strong history of designing and implementing successful strategies designed to meet or exceed organizational safety goals, solid relationship building skills, and experience working collaboratively with teams, partners, and public. Perfect summary. Like they didn't go too far in detail about one specific job. They just highlighted things. What did I get from that? I got that this person works good as a team. They are good with relationship building, which is also really good with partners and working collaboratively, whether it's internal or external. They talked about recreation work and working in busy seasons. Not all Forest Service forests or districts have a real busy season. Some busy seasons are not even real busy seasons if you compare them to a recreation site that is more high level. So, that's another thing too to get into, like the capacity that you are used to and wherever you may have been working. So that was a really good summary. And then you go down, they talked about their key skills: recreation area maintenance, wildfire suppression, team development, empowerment, chainsaw use and safety. So if I was looking for someone that had fire experience, that was chainsaw certified, that was really good with communications. Again, they've highlighted this stuff. And so what you want to do is anytime you have a key skills section, and it's not even just about like these things that they may be certified in. Sometimes people will also use something like GIS or SUDS, some of those programs that we might use in the agency. It's okay to list it, but you got to make sure that you tie it back into experience. So you may talk about something up here, you may list it, but it's important for you to tie it back into the job. And now again, I'll kind of show you what I mean by that. So if you go on down to this work experience section, you have forestry technician, intern, GS 046205. What does that even mean, Sylvia? That means that this position has a 0462 series. So what is series? Series is a 4-digit number how the federal government classifies or categorizes jobs in the agency or in the federal government or occupational areas. So this 0462 is the series for a forestry technician. A professional forester is a 0460. A program specialist or program manager could be a 0301. A wildlife biologist is, I think, a 0467. So there's all these different, 0486. There's all these different numbers that directly relate to a certain position in the government. And then this last 2-digit number is a reflection of the GS level. So this person is a GS5 working as a forestry technician. No, you guys do not have GS levels. No, you guys do not have a series that's attached to your position because you are considered a contractor right now working through the program. However, there is a series and a GS level equivalent to what you're working in. If you do not know this, go back to your supervisor and say, hey, the position that I'm in, what is the equivalent series to this position? And then they're going to say, oh, okay, you're in special uses. Special uses people can be hired either in a 0401 or what's the other one? I'm not even going to try to make it up. I can't remember the other number. I forgot the other number that special uses uses, but it's 2 different numbers that special uses people can use to qualify for their positions. And so then you can also ask them, okay, at what level is this position am I being trained on? Am I being trained on at an entry level 5 or GS7? Can you share that with me? You can even go as far as asking them to show you or share with you a PD that shows you of a GS5 and a GS7 at that particular series. And then that can also help you to build out your resume as well, because the PD, that's where they pull the information from that goes on the announcements in USA Jobs. So you can always get that level of information. So just ask your supervisor. So going on May 2019 through present, USDA Forest Service, Cherokee National Forest, Ocoee Ranger District, 40 hours a week. They have the supervisor's information. Contact me first. Perfect. Everything we need. All right. And I'm going to show you guys an example of what you'll need on your part, while you're a RA, which will look a lot like this, but it'll also have your partner information. So this first resume example shows you how to highlight your experience within certain what we call, like I said, the KSA. So this one, they're talking about strategic planning. So everything that they did in this particular position that had to do something with strategic planning, they put it in this particular paragraph. Everything that was directly related to project management, they put it into that paragraph. So going on down, special projects, they talked about their special project, how they worked a 2-week assignment on the Cherokee National Forest. Going on down some more to their next job. Again, another forestry technician position. They got their GS level in their series, May 2018 through August 2018. USDA Foresters, Cherokee National Forest, Watauga Ranger District, 40 hours a week. Supervisor information, okay to contact. Again, they got it broken down to highlight their wildland firefighting experience as well as their trainings. So we're just going to scroll through a little bit more. Another experience of the forestry technician. And then on this resume example, of course, we have this RA position in the volunteer section, but it doesn't have to go there. It can go in your real work experience. Again, these are just different ways to show you guys stuff. So we have a recreation crew intern, June 2016 through August 2016. Green and Youth Foundation, again, that would be your partner. Green and Youth Foundation, Mobilized Green, Hispanic Access Foundation, MANARS, Environment for the Americas, whoever your partner is, you're going to list your partner name. You're going to put Cherokee National Forest or whatever forest you were working on, whatever district, your hours that you're working per week, resource assistant program. Make sure that you separate what your title is and you spell out resource assistant program. Reason why is because if you don't have it in this section down here as a volunteer experience or additional experience, and you have it in like your real work experience, they're going to be looking for your series. They're going to be looking for your grade. So it's important for you to highlight that this is work through a partner program. And here's my partner, so that HR sees this and they don't disqualify you for not having that information that's required to have in your work experience section. So me, when I apply for a job, I have to have my series. I have to have my GS level. If I apply for a job and I don't have that stuff listed on my resume, I can be disqualified. So that's the reason why it's important for you guys to make sure that you have resource assistant program, have your partner, and then also have your position title and all of that great stuff. So don't forget that part is very critical. And again, they talk about coordination, communication. So moving on, you got your special recognition. Those are some those awards that this person received. They have the specialized training listed and the where they got it and the year. Going on to the education, Bachelor of Science, Natural Resource Management, Wildfire University. They had a 3.75 GPA. It was in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and they graduated in May of 2019. Make sure that you have what type of degree it is. And again, I know it's one of those things like, does Sylvia, I'm going to have what type of degree it is. No, you have no idea how many resumes I've seen where they would have natural resource management. I'm like, okay, is this a master's, bachelor's, associate's degree? Make sure you list out exactly what degree it is that you have. And if you have multiple degrees, make sure you list out all of them. All right. And then last, you got your references section, who they are, where they work, email, phone number. Okay. And then the other sections, I'm not going to go through a word by word because it says the exact same stuff. It's just formatted different. So I'm just going to show you the different format. So this example 2 of Smoky Bear Jr., you see it does not have that professional summary at the top. It goes straight into the work experience. Again, that section is optional. So you can either have it or you don't have to have it. And then the other difference between this resume and the other one is this one is in bullet form. And so you got bullets that are 4-liners, 2-liners, 3-liners. It doesn't matter. Again, it's all about your meat and potatoes. It's all about what you're saying. So making sure that you're being very strategic and very detailed about what you're talking about in your resume. Talking about, I completed ecological and biological surveys. Instead of saying that I was responsible for completing surveys, okay, for what? What did you accomplish? What kind of surveys were these? So again, be very detailed in your experience. And again, all of this information is still the same. More bullets, more bullets. So going on down, again, still the same, just looks a little different. And then the third example, again, Smokey Bear Jr. This time we have another professional summary. We don't have the key skills listed. We just got just that professional summary paragraph, again, which is okay. And then with this resume, we decided to do paragraph form because guess what? That's also acceptable. All of this information is still listed because it's still very necessary for you to include. And then they go right into their experiences. Again, it's the same as what you guys read above, but it's in paragraph form. If you are going to do paragraph form, please be careful with that. And the reason why is because you don't want it to make it like a paper. You don't want to make it like an essay. And guess what we do? We're going to scan. We're going to scan through it. And we want to make sure that we are looking for buzz and keywords. So if I was scanning through this, some of the words that would pop out to me, civil culture examinations, timber communications, blah, 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 blah. I would talk about capturing notes in accurate, logical manner. Let me see what else will pop out. Detailed timber management projects, timber stand management projects, assisting in the planning of it, field data, creating reports, timber stand improvement surveys, COR, contracting officer representative. Those are some things that will pop out. So make sure that your experience does not get lost in your paragraph. It's very, very necessary if you're going to use this format to use as many buzz and keywords as possible. And again, same information as the other ones, just paragraph form. Okay. So at this time, I'm going to take more questions before I give you guys an exercise. All right, so let me go up a little bit more. Make sure, okay. How far back are we required to go? I have all my relevant work experience from college, but do I need to list that I worked at Burger King in 2015 in high school? Reagan, you don't want to tell people that you should let folks have it their way at Burger King? No, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. So I'll say that I have read and seen where sometimes they want you to go back as far as 10 years. However, if you know it wasn't related, if you know you only worked at Burger King for the summer or something, then you don't really need it, especially going all the way back to high school. You know, it really just depends. But it also depends on what you're applying for, right? So if you're applying to a technician position or a position that will require you to work as a team, it might not hurt, right? It might not hurt for you to have your Burger King experience on there. Because again, working at Burger King, you're not working by yourself. You are working as a part of a team. So again, it really depends on what you're applying for and what that job was. And you guys are still young in your career. So it's okay for you to tap back into things that you did in high school, just depending on what it is and what you're applying for. Now me, I'm 32 years old. I don't been in the agency since 2012. I have no business talking about what I was doing in high school because it doesn't matter, right? At this point, some of the stuff I even did in college doesn't even matter. So again, it just depends on where you are in your life and also how much experience you have. Sometimes people have not worked certain jobs or they've never had a job before this internship. If that's the case, you got to really beef up your resume. But what I will say with that is do not create a long resume just to say, oh, I have a long federal resume. No, that's not the goal. The goal is not to create a resume to make it long. The goal is to create a resume that's going to help to help qualify you for your job. So if the resume ends up being long, then hey, that's just your business. That just means you've been busy, you've been active, and you have a lot to say. But if you don't have that, don't fluff it. Don't try to build out a long resume just to have a long resume. So make sure it's relevant. If it's not relevant, make sure it is still something that can be useful to hiring managers to qualify you. Or to also HR to qualify you. So again, it just depends on two things, what the experience was and what you're actually applying for. Hopefully that helped to answer your question, Reagan. And so one other point I'll add there is I always share this example of one of my friends in the agency. Now she's a staff officer, but she was working in HR. when she applied for her job, for the HR job, she had on her resume how she was a cheerleader in college. I mean, in high school. To some people, they're like, okay, you're a cheerleader. So what? What does this have to do with HR? Well, anyone that knows HR, you got to be bold in HR. Sometimes you have to have uncomfortable conversations in HR. Sometimes HR has to be kind of cutthroat. Either you make it or you don't. Either qualified or you're not. And you have to be a people person. Well, guess what? Cheerleaders are loud. Cheerleaders are people persons. They are not shy. So when this hiring manager seen that my friend was a cheerleader, she was like, oh, yeah, great, along with her other qualifications. But that cheerleader, her being a cheerleader, really stood out to that hiring manager because she was like, I know what kind of person I'm getting. Now, again, that's a wild example. But again, just depending on what kind of experiences you've had in the past, they could or could not really help separate you or differentiate you from the next applicant. So just kind of think about those things that can kind of make you stand out. What type of resume format do you recommend? Namari, I'm assuming you're asking based off of the examples that I just shared. If that's what you're asking, then I would say I recommend whichever one you feel the most comfortable with. For me, I'm a bullet girl. I use bullets. I've always used bullets. I'm not ever using paragraph because I don't want my stuff to get lost in the sauce. Like I got a lot to say. I've done a lot of stuff in all of my jobs, and I don't want to create an essay. I don't want it to get lost. So I'm definitely not doing paragraphs. I would say at this point, at this level in my career, I would consider doing the first example just because now I'm in a more of a program management role. So there are certain things that I work on now that may be important for me to highlight versus listing out all of my duties and all of my accomplishments and stuff like that. So for me, I would say I have done my resume depending on where I am in my career. But I would say do what's best for you. So whichever one you feel like is easy for you to highlight your experiences, that's what you roll with. And as far as if there's a preference between builder and your own resume builder, I personally don't like it. But again, that's just Sylvia's preference. I don't like the resume builder on USA Jobs. I like when people create their own. But it's all about what you got on it. Thanks for that question. Anna, why can't the RA internship fit in work experience? So again, you probably put that in there while I was after I had talked or before I talked about it. It can go in your work experience section, but it is very important that you have that detailed information I talked about in there, because if you don't, like these examples we gave you is the safe option. The safe option is to have it in that additional experience section. That's the safe option, so that way there's a clear distinction between your work jobs and this RA ship, right? If you want to have it in your work experience section, you can, but you must make sure that HR knows that this was a resource assistant program position, because we have again seen how people have gotten disqualified because they had it in the work experience section, but they may have left out resource assistant program and just put that they were a special uses intern, and then HR is like, okay, where's your GS level? Okay, where's your series? You don't have it, disqualified. So that's the reason why it's there like that on the example, because that's the safe option. But again, you can do either or, but make sure you have the information that they need to know what it is. All right, Kennedy, I went to 3 different colleges. Can I use the college I graduated from since it has all of my classes? Yes. So if you went to multiple colleges, it is best practice to list out the colleges that the college you graduated from. Now, if you went to a community college and you got an associate's degree, and then you went to another university and got a bachelor's, list both of those. And it really depends on the university that you're using to qualify you for the position, which is another thing. When you apply for the job, make sure you have all transcripts. Even if your last transcript has those transfer credits, make sure that you also have the old transcript too, just so they can kind of go back and see that, because you never know what they're going to use to qualify you. So always use all transcripts. But yeah, you don't really have to list out those universities. If you went somewhere and you left, you don't have to list out every university you went to. All right, going on down. So if we include our RA job in the normal work experience section, can we say GS level or GS level equivalent, and then also include resources and wording? You need to also list our experience below. Okay, yeah, so I kind of already answered that, but just to kind of cover some other stuff that you added in that question. Christian, is that yes, you can put resource assistant program and make sure you have your title, and you can put GS5 equivalent experience or something like that so that they can see that. Of course, they're going to read through that and they're going to determine that themselves, but you can also add that extra level if you are confident in what you're talking about, right? So make sure you've had that conversation with someone that can tell you for sure, okay, this is a GS5. Now, what I will say, all of you guys are getting that at least in your experience, so no one should be getting anything lower than that. But yeah, you can add that equivalent wording to your resume. I wouldn't say GS level NA. I wouldn't use that. I would say GS level equivalent. And again, making sure you have resource system program. Yeah, hope that. So that if you have multiple degrees, I'm gonna do I need to send. Yes, send all transcripts, all transcripts. And another reason why that's important is because you know, if you have a bachelor's and a master's, the classes that you took are different, right? And where sometimes they might be combined on one, sometimes they're not. And so there are certain courses that are going to be needed. There's a certain amount of hours that are needed in certain courses to qualify you for a particular series. And your master degree transcript sometimes don't always list out every single course that you might have taken, but your other transcript will. And so you're going to want to make sure you have both of them so that HR can have all the courses that you ever took, and they can see that, you know, what qualifies you versus just having that higher level transcript available, because they'll need that. I've seen people be disqualified because they didn't have all of their transcripts. All right. Any other questions so far? Will our 6 months of RA experience, yes, fine, equivalent count towards time and grade if we become permanent? No, so that will not, it will count towards your qualifications, but it cannot count towards time and grade because you're not in a grade, right? It's equivalent. You're a contractor, so it does not count towards it. If you were a intern through the Pathways program, which is an official government program, which you would even have a GS level, you would have a series, then that does count. But you guys are not Pathways. You are considered a contractor. You're working with us through a partner, so it's not the same. Hopefully that helps, Tyler. If not, let me know. Any other questions so far? Okay. All right. I know this is kind of a long session. So before we go into these examples where I want you guys to really engage with me and kind of point out things that need to be changed and stuff, I'm going to give you like 3 different examples where we're going to, again, go through, and I want you to point out what could be wrong or what needs to be updated or changed. So before we do that, I'm going to give you guys a quick little bio break. Take about 3 minutes or so to get up, stretch your legs, stretch your arms, go run to the restroom, whatever you need to do, and be back, and we'll start the session back up at 2, I'm gonna say 2:07, because probably about to change to 2:04. So 2:07, we'll start this back, 2:07 Eastern time. So we'll take a pause. But I'm not going anywhere, so if the rest of you guys have questions or whatever, you can still drop it in the chat. But we'll break. All right, all right, all right, you guys. It is 2:07 my time, so we are going to pick up and keep it going. All right, so at this time, I'm going to go through again 3 different examples. I want you guys to think about some of the things that I have already shared with you about the federal resume, some of the do's, some of the don'ts, and I want you guys to point out some things that you might see in the resume example that may need to be corrected or changed or whatever. So again, I need you guys to be interactive, right? So work with me here. All right, so we're going to show our first example. All right, Jane Doe. We got Jane Doe. So Jane Doe has her information up here at the top. Is there anything anyone want to share about what you see at the top? Maybe anything that may or may not stick out to you? The email, yeah, catch dreams 2222. I mean, it's not the worst thing that I've ever seen, but I don't know that I would use catch dreams. So the summary, long summary. So I would say this summary is actually okay as far as lengthwise. It's just a a little small paragraph. So the summary I mean the length of the summary is actually okay. So the first thing I seen, of course, was the email address. So moving on to the next section. Is there anything right in here? The font of the name doesn't stand out. So let's go back up and look at the name font. So it is a little larger than, it doesn't stand out as in, like it's kind of dim. The whole title up there is dimmed out and these are more bolded. So I would definitely keep that, change that. One of the other things that I see before we even get down to this line, one of the things I see right here is, look at that spacing, right? So they needed to provide more space in between that last sentence there in their education. It just looked like it was kind of lumped together. So yeah, so it looks like Tequila had she said the formatting of the address, no spacing. There are seasons, correct. So if we go on down to the education piece, um, you have your College of Charleston. They got all that. They got August 15th through December 17th, which is great. They got this internship that they did fall of 2017. And then they got this other thing they did in Jamaica, summer 15. That's what, that's not okay. So they need to provide the month and the year that they did this, because fall 2017, maybe they did this for the entire fall semester, which would have been August through December, or maybe they just did it for the month of October. Who knows? No one knows. And guess what HR isn't going to do? HR is not going to play the guessing game and give you the max because they don't know. So we cannot play the guessing game. So you got to make sure that you really spell it out and provide that month and that year of that experience or that time frame so that we know exactly what we're working with. So moving on down to employment. What do you guys see in employment? Experience and work they did should be under a different section. Yep, that's a good point too there, Kennedy. In your education piece, you really want to just focus on your degrees that you have received and your your accomplishments and other things can be in a different section. So anything in this employment section, anybody want to point out anything that you guys see? Spacing and format is clumped. Yep. It's out of order. So as far as ordering, let's see. I would say it's fine with the ordering. Only I think what threw you guys off is maybe the 16 right here. But right here, this job ended. So it's like they're working 2 different jobs at the same time. So they're still currently working both of those jobs. So it's okay that they have that the way that they have that. Not much explanation of what they did. Great. Yeah, they got these 2-liners and 4-liners. And even though they're using a bullet format, they don't even have any bullets. So it kind of all just runs together. So if you're going to have a bullet format, make sure to include your bullets. Don't just list out lines of experience. No supervisor information, no hours worked. Great catch, Christian. No hours worked. How long did you work in these jobs every week? or every pay period. What's the location of these jobs? There's no location on any of these jobs. There's no supervisor information, like you already said. Some of the verbs used are present, even though it's about past experience. Yep. All great points. All great points. So we're going to move right along. So then they have service. And they talk about, okay, well, I won't say anything yet. What do you guys see here? Anything stick out? The seasons again. Yep. Anything else? Nothing else? Only seasons? You guys sure? Still doesn't let me know really what they did. Right. Like they talk about the trip, but they didn't give themselves a title. What were you? Were you an assistant? Were you a technician? Like what were you doing on these trips? Were you just a participant? Give yourself a title. You always want to give yourself some type of title. For anything that you provide, that you're providing that some experience that you want to use to help qualify you for a job. Yeah, the spacing is still bad. They still didn't provide how much time they worked in any of these jobs. Like on the Brazilian one, it talks about how they organize and facilitate a 10-day international trip. Okay, you did that for 10 days, but how many hours did you put in on this 10-day trip? That could make a break, how long someone, was doing a certain type of experience or gotten a certain type of experience to help with qualifications. All great points. And the other thing is service. What is that? What kind of service? What do you want an HR to get from just saying service? Is this additional experience? Is this volunteer service? Like what are you saying here? Service. And guess what? That's the end of the resume. What else is wrong with this resume? What else would you include on this resume that they did not include? No references. We have you provided no supervisor, and then you turn around and not provide any references. That's not okay, right? Good job. All right, we're gonna go to the next one. Example number 2. Let me blow it up for you. We got Jane Doe again. Jane Doe number 2. All right, what are some things you see? We won't go all the way to the education piece. So let's just focus on the top part now, just the name part, languages, and skills, and expertise. They use their USDA email. Yep. Which again, it's not the worst, but it's not suggested. No address, heading not centered. And something like that, is probably preferred for it to be that way, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, but it's definitely preferred to have your name heading centered. The other ones can be anywhere, but yeah, good point there. Another thing that I see is where's the information to go in between this? Like the little ashes that they have there. There's just missing information in there. So that goes back to proofreading and having someone else to look over your resume to make sure they catch these things. Like, hey, friend, Jane, you might want to delete one of these, Jane, before you share this resume with someone. All right, then you got your languages. Everything is good there. Your skills and expertise. Anything else you guys see right here before we move forward? What about that spacing again? Look at this spacing between languages and skills and expertise. And then look at the spacing between skills and expertise and education. Yep, there's a random R in skills. Like, what is that? What is R? And let's see. Okay, so let's move on. I like the languages should list when they learned it. R is that software. Okay, so let's talk about that. Well, first I'll speak on Kennedy's comment that she said. She feels like the language should list when they learned it. That would be another level of information that you could provide, not necessarily required, because just providing that they are a native English speaker and advanced Spanish, like that is okay. But if you want to take it a step further to show like how long you've been speaking in that language, you can definitely do that. But I won't say it's necessarily required, because they did provide. Now, if they just listed English, Spanish, Arabic, that's one thing, but they provided like their the level of their language familiarity. So someone pointed out that R is a stat software. Guess what? Guess who don't know that? Me. So you can never assume that people are going to always know what you're talking about, especially when you apply for a job. Certain engineering terms might be obvious to one person, but then you don't know who's going to be on that hiring panel, right? So you got to assume that there's going to be more than just engineers that are looking at your job. I mean, looking at your resume. So make sure you really spell things out. Don't always assume that people are going to know exactly what you're talking about, because you're going to get that person that's not in your field, and they're going to be like, okay, I don't know what this is, so I'm not even going to count it for anything. But that could have been something that could have really helped you to stand out. But because you didn't spell it all the way out, they just looked over it and didn't give you that credit. So again, something else to think about. All right, going on to your education piece. Anything did you guys see in education? Don't go to work experience yet. Just look at education. Anything in education? Yep, it's all cap, right? All caps. Why? And that's not okay, because guess what? The other resume, the parts of the resume isn't all cap like that. So why is that part? Anything else in education? I see something else. Is there anything else? Anything else in education? Add the month of graduation. Correct. Yeah, there's no month in the graduation. They just have their years, 2020 and 2017. You want to make sure you add the month that you received that degree. Good job. All right, moving right along to your work experience section. So one thing, I see something real evident. I'm gonna go back up and let you guys see this part, and then I'm going back down to see if y'all see anything else. And it's actually more so on this one. So you see that this is more grayed out, but then this in your education, it's all black, right? So that's another thing. There's no consistency there. Make sure that all your fonts look the same. All right, so now we're in the work experience section. What do you guys see? What do you think? Anything stick out? Anything? Supervisor information. Yep. Anything else? That's all you guys see? Is just the supervisor information? Okay. Spacing around duties. Yeah, there's some odd spacing going on. So this person decided to give like a quick little sentence before they go into their duties. So they had worked remotely on the Washington office National Trail Program, providing support within the program. So I would not have, I personally would not have had that sentence. Like they could have put up, instead of having a sentence that said that they were remotely working on that program, they could have listed that up there. So first of all, here they have that they work for the Forest Service, but they don't have where. And then down here in the sentence, they have the Washington office. So if you're working for the Washington office or for research, of course you're not going to have, like on the other example I gave you guys on the resume guide, it had the Cherokee National Forest. You're not going to have that. So that level of information is going to be your research station, or it's going to be the Washington office. And it could have been, this one would have been the National Trail Program, or it could have been RHBR. So you got to make sure that you understand the correct title of wherever you're working at, because it may not be a national forest. So make sure you pay attention to that kind of stuff. Um, their position, yeah. What was their position? They don't even have their position title there. So make sure you have your position title. Make sure you add resource assistant program. Add program to the resource assistant part. Anything else? Um, so down here, one of the things I think that sticks out with me with this first bullet, they have worked with park organizations like American Trails and Professional Trail Builders Association. I wouldn't say like, you don't want if you're going to use bullets, you don't want it to sound like a paper, right? You want to make sure you're using the correct verbiage in your bullets and stuff. So I would have said such as or something like that, but you want to make sure you're using correct grammar and everything that you do. And then the schedule facilitated meetings with various stakeholders for what? Provide more context there. Updated the National Trails web pages with current content. What kind of content? How often did you have to do updates? Did you have to do monthly updates, quarterly updates? Here's another position. Same spacing. This one they provided that time that 12 they work 12 to 20 hours, which is okay. You can provide that if your hours have fluctuated in a job, it's okay for you to put 15 to 20 or 12 to 20, whatever it was. So again, right here they have who they worked for down here, but they should have put it in their title up there. All right, so we'll skip on past this because all of their stuff looks the same. Here they provided that they were a graduate trainee. This was a master's project. Again, that goes back to what I was sharing with you guys about providing information about when you were in a college, if you took a capstone course or something, just some type of high-level project, it's okay for you to add that stuff. So going on down some more, we're going to go past all of this to the next section. So then they have their teaching experience. So one thing I'll say about that goes back to depending on the experience that you have in the position that you're applying for. If you're applying for a research position or some kind of writing position, then you might want to point out how you have written certain publications, or you have presented your research work. So stuff like that is great for you to show depending on the type of position you're applying for. Now, sometimes it's not as important for you to really list out all of them. So you can just say that you accomplish 5 research presentations at professional conferences, and you can maybe list out the titles or something, but you don't have to go into detail. But again, if you are applying for a research position or a writing position, something where it directly relates, then you do want to provide that level of information. So this person really wanted to highlight their teaching experience. So they listed the courses that they taught, and they also provided context about the courses. They got their leadership and affiliations, 2019 through 2020. We don't know if that was August 2019 and they worked until in this position, or they were the president until May of 2020. We can assume, but we don't know. So make sure that you again provide that month, so we can see how long you had that experience. Same thing there. Really on all of those. Going on down, they have international experience. Anything that you guys see in this section? Anything? They don't have the year on this. Once again, gotta add your year. Gotta add your year. Someone said, okay, they said, never mind. Okay. All right, we're gonna go on past this. They got their volunteer experience. Anything in their volunteer work experience that you want to point out? So this first one, they're missing a month. We can assume that it was a year-long program and they are still in this position of August of 2020, but we don't know. Is HR going to assume? Probably not. So make sure you have that there. Another thing, they and a lot of the year and month on the second one. Yep. So this person was very inconsistent all throughout their resume as far as providing the month and the year in a lot of their experiences. And even though this is volunteer experience, when they're talking about being a club leader, they only have these 2 lines. Maybe, I mean, I'm assuming, or I would hope that they would have done more than just that. So don't downplay your volunteer experience or your unpaid experiences. Still provide as much information as possible, because all those experiences can help qualify you. As well as, how we talk about how some jobs might say you need a year of experience. Well, it doesn't mean they have to be in that particular job. They can use combined experiences. So you could have been an engineer in one position and then went to another position, but as long as you provide the dates in the right way, we can combine those experiences to give you that year of experience to qualify you for the job. Don't really see anything here in their training certification, so that part is fine. The academic honors and grant part is fine as well. Papers at conferences, again, list that stuff depending on the job you're applying for. If you're not applying for a research type position, you can leave it off. Anything else on this resume? What did they forget? Anybody? Are you guys sleeping on me? What they forgetting in this resume? This is the end of it. What they forget after they talked about their papers?
References.
Yes, references. They forgot their references. So a very long resume, 6 pages, but they forgot an important piece, which was their references. And let me go back. I don't know if let me see if they provided their, yeah, they don't have references or supervisor information. So a double whammy. All right, last example. Jane Doe the third. Any thoughts on this part here? So their title, their header, small. They only have their email and their phone number. Their education piece. There you go, size of the font. Then you're going down into the education piece. So one of the things that this person did is they haven't graduated, so they put expected graduation date of May 2023. So that's a great thing too, that if you have not yet received your degree, you still want to provide your education information. You don't even really have to put expected. You could if you can if you want to, but you don't have to do that. You just put May 2023 or August or whenever that month and year is that you're going to receive that degree. No punctuation of any kind. Aside from a few spread out colons and commas. Yes. It's not really easy to read. No consistency. They provided a GPA there, did not provide a GPA there. So again, just making sure that you're being consistent throughout. General skills. Anything here? All right, so some of the things that I see, they have English and Spanish fluency, but they didn't really provide, we really like for you guys to put native or advanced or immediate so that we really know. They did list out their different softwares, which is great. And this person did put R Studio at least instead of just R. Programming languages, added some information there. But this resume, it just doesn't provide, there's no creativity. There's no, even though things look somewhat the same as far as consistency, it all just runs together. And so you never want a resume that just runs together like this. And then here you have general skills and the G and the S are capitalized, but when you get to laboratory work, they didn't capitalize the W. So if these are your section titles or your headers, then you want to make sure that those are consistent as well. And then it just goes into their experience. What's missing here in this area that you guys can see? We're almost done. What's missing here? If you were the reviewer of this resume, what are some thoughts that you would be thinking right now, looking at just this particular part, the laboratory work? Yeah, there's no dates provided, no times provided that they worked. Who did they work for? What laboratory? What was their position? They have none of that. Like, right, very vague. Like, what do you want me to do with this information, right? How can I use this information to qualify you? Yes, you said you did it, but I don't know how long you did it. I don't know when you did it. I have none of those details. So make sure you provide all of those details for your jobs. Now they have their work experience section. If wasn't a scientist, they would have no clue what they were talking about. Yes, if this, you assume that this person might be applying to like a research scientist type position or something. But again, you also never want to assume. So great point is there. So here's their work experience, September 21st, 2020 through present. Resource assistant through Hispanic Access Foundation, the U.S. Forest Service, Ajuca National Forest, Rio Grande, Puerto Rico. So they decided to continue their resume with paragraph form. Again, which is okay, but you just got to be mindful. So they do have a lot of acronyms in here, but they are spelling them out the first time they use them. So make sure that you do that. Okay. And how they have the exact date that they started. If you know the exact date, then that's even better. Because saying that you started September 1st versus saying that you started September 29th, that's a big difference. That's a whole month of experience that a person could have had to help qualify them to meet those qualifications versus not having it. So if you have that level of detail, provide it. If you don't, just keep it at the month. And again, here you don't have to put resource assistant through, put resource assistant program. They don't even have their title of what they were as a resource assistant. And that's their partner, Hispanic Access Foundation. All right, so moving along. Oh, down here at the bottom, now they have it. They have their hours worked per week, 40 hours, and they have their salary. Well, the only thing on then there's their supervisor information. Okay, so we just had to scroll down some more. So they got their supervisor information, who they can call. Is it okay to contact supervisor? No. Okay to contact the supervisor? Yes. So they said it's okay to contact John, but it was not okay to contact David. And here at the bottom, they had their 40 hours a week, but that kind of got lost in their experience. So you want to make sure you separate that and not let that be lost in your experience. And another thing is having this supervisor stuff that's kind of not capitalized, not bolded, flow right from your work experience. I wouldn't recommend that either. Like have it, it's okay to have it at the bottom, but highlight it a little bit more so that it stands out just like this part did. So that's just, again, something that stuck out to me. So going on down, some more jobs, same old stuff, same old. Additional experience, they did not capitalize the E. Okay, same stuff. Awards, presentations. Again, no references. So none of these examples gave references, which is, again, a big no-no. So you want to make sure that you have your references and your supervisor information. All right, so I'm gonna just go to the chat box. So those are all the examples that I wanted to kind of go through with you. So now we're just gonna talk. You guys have any questions? Drop me some questions into the chat box and we can just kind of discuss what you guys may have learned today, how you can apply it to your own experience in your own resumes. Christian, what if you know the exact day you started your position, your RA position, but you don't know it for your other jobs? Does it look bad to not keep it consistent? Great question. So I would say that I'm a big consistency person. So if I didn't know it from my other jobs, I probably wouldn't put it. But I can't speak for other hiring managers. I can't speak for everyone. So that's one of those things that you just got to ask yourself: do I want to be consistent, or do I want to provide this level of information for that one job? So it's kind of up to you what you want to do. But me personally, I would probably keep mine consistent. Should salary be listed if it's not GS? So that kind of stuff, I would say go to the announcement to see if it asks you for salary. Sometimes it does ask you for salary, sometimes it doesn't. But if it does, then yes, you want to make sure that you provide the salary or the stipend amount. Like if it was just if you were a part of a program, you just had a stipend that you received monthly or something, you can just put that. So like when I was in college, I was a part of different programs. I had work study, so I just had my stipend amounts per semester or for the year, and then after that, I had federal government internships. So then I had GS levels. So you can provide that so that they can kind of see what the equivalency would be, since you don't really know that information. Great question. All right. Any other questions? Or are you guys all like federal resume gurus now? You guys got it figured out? You got any questions, any thoughts, any scenarios? Whatever you might want to ask, now is the time before you guys hop offline. Feel free to show face, raise your hand, come on camera. Let's chat here for the rest of our time here. How would you suggest listing seasonal work that you work the same position for multiple seasons separately, or list out the date ranges under the same position heading? Great question, Samantha. So what I always tell people about going to back to the same position is I ask the question, where's there a change? So sometimes when you go from one position in one season, you go back, maybe you got promoted, maybe you were on the crew, and then the next year you became the crew lead. That's a big difference. So you want to make sure you separate what that was. Now, if it was the same experience, same GS level, same duties, absolutely, positively, nothing changed, then yes, you can list it out and just put each summer of the experiences, like, or whatever that field season was, you could put those dates for that particular field season. But again, if something changed, if you were kind of got promoted, even if it wasn't like an official promotion, if it was a promotion of duties and responsibilities, you want to show that advancement, because then HR again can use that to help qualify you. Because what maybe one season you was a GS 4 or 3, and the next season you was a 5 or 4, and then a 5. So you want to make sure you show those separation. But if there was never a change in duties, responsibilities, GS levels, none of that, then you don't really have to continue listening. Because some people have worked for like 10 seasons. You don't want to always have that information just listed out there when you've worked 10 seasons and all the stuff is going to stay the same. Um, but yeah, it just depends on if any of those things change. Does it look weird and out of order than if you also list jobs that were in? No, it won't look weird. Again, I will also use a cover letter, Samantha. That your cover letter is like your saving grace, right? It's like it's that flag that you can wave, like, hey, my resume is gonna be a little tricky, or my resume is gonna be a little wonky or confusing. Read this so you understand what I've been doing in my life. And you can talk about that on your cover letter. You can say how you have a passion for forest service, for working in the forest service as a firefighter in your off season. You do this that helps to continue to develop your different skill sets to make you more of a professional. Whatever, I'm just throwing some random stuff out here, but use your cover letter to kind of help you out in that those gaps or those other experiences. How would you recommend listing out cross-training experiences with your RA position? For example, I have a list of an entire page of experiences that I had that are not related to special uses RA position, but work experience with other departments, and I'm not sure the best way to list the experiences out. Great question, because I assume and I would hope that everyone is getting more experience beyond what they're doing. All right. So one of the things you can do is in your work experience, you can talk about what those main accomplishments and things were in your position, but then you can in that same space, like, well, it depends on what you're doing. If you're doing bullets or if you're doing where you're highlighting certain experiences. So depending on how you're, formatting your resume will determine how you're going to list this out. But it needs to all still be in your same job. So whatever experiences you got in your RA-ship need to stay within your block of RA-ship. You don't need to put it anywhere else, so it's not confusing and make it seem like you had two different RA-ships at the same time. Have it all in the same area. So again, depending on which format you use will determine how you need to do it. But you can just list it out. So list out it's like so an example, if you use a bullets, start off with all of your direct experience and then list out the other stuff at the bottom of that. Again, still in bullets, still speaking to it, even though it's not directly related, still experiences that you got. So your bullet could be like, let's say, okay, for me, I was a forester, but I helped the archaeologists, the district archaeologists. I helped the wildlife biologists. I helped the recreation folks. So all still within my position, talking about a forester. When I got to those other bullets, I just talked about how I got certain experiences and exposure. So I might have said assisted district wildlife biologist with bat surveys or whatever I might have did, and I listed out what that experience was. So you just continue to just build off all of that, all within the same job area, if that makes sense. Any other questions? Any other questions about your resumes? And on Wednesday, when we talk about USA jobs, I'm going to tie it back into today and show you where to get the specialized experience and stuff. We won't go over that part today. Today, we just want to be a quick high-level overview of federal resumes, point out some ins and outs. And then on Wednesday, when I go over USA jobs, I'll show you guys the specialized experience that needs to go into your resume in like 3 sections to find buzz and keywords. But today just kind of want just to focus on the resume. So any questions about resume? Don't be shy. You can raise your hand. You can drop it in the chat. So I have a question for you guys. What's something that you learned today that you may or may not have known? What's something that you're going to take away from this resume webinar? Drop that kind of stuff in the chat. Let me know. Let me know how I might need to adjust this to help the next group. Did you guys appreciate going through the exercise? Did you appreciate the guide that I started out with? What are you taking away from this section, from this session? Be creative. Yes, be creative. What else? Breakdown of the resume. Realize I had a lot of community service from college that I can add. Yes, I like that community service, but it brought any of those additional experiences that you guys have. Anyone else? You guys are being quiet. What else? What else did you guys pick up? Resumes are a big deal. Resumes can make or break if you get a job or not. To think about how HR is going to review your resume, not everyone uses the same link. Oh, great, great point. Inconsistent font and spacing can make your resume look cluttered. Yes. Focus on the buzzwords. Yep. Specific do's and don'ts. Always use season instead of months for days. Well, great, Ruby. I'm glad that you know now, Ruby, not to use those seasons. How to correctly list the RA work experience in the federal. All of these are great points, you guys, and things that people come back to me over and over and over asking, hey, what did you say about this? Or how do I put my RA ship? So I'm glad you guys are picking up on this and you're going to be applying it to your position. So if you guys remember in the beginning of your RA ship, I kind of talked really briefly about resumes, and I told you guys to start taking notes of the things that you are doing, things you're being exposed to, equipment that you're using, whatever programs. Now I hope that you are now taking this session and will now go back and make updates to your resume and plug this stuff in and go ahead and develop yourself a resume. Develop your resume, have those conversations with your supervisor, let your supervisor look over your resume. I'm gonna be honest. If you can catch me on a good day, a good week, I may or may not have time to review it for you and provide some feedback. But if you want to shoot your shot, send it to me. Like I said, if I have time to look over it and provide feedback, then I will. But sometimes I do get a little busy, and it is a lot of y'all. But that's okay. So share that with me. Some of your regions do have recruiters that you can also work with to share your resume for review with them. But always make sure people look at your resume. And again, it does not matter that you are being directly hired for a position. Your resume still needs to be good, because I have seen people be directly appointed into a position and one, don't get the GS level that they deserve, or two, don't even meet the qualifications. The only thing that's working for them is that they got the Willy Wonka golden ticket certificate. That's it. But guess what? Your certificate means nothing if your resume is not up to par. So make sure that your resume is up to par. So like I said, take all the information that you guys learned today, and take those experiences that you have, build out your resume, make sure someone is looking over your resume. Is it okay to have your supervisor provide feedback to your resume, even if your supervisor is the one who is, yeah, let them read over it. Let them read over it. Tell them, I mean, because at this point, right now, they're your mentor, they're your supervisor. They should and they need to be providing you guys with feedback. We're not talking about what's going to happen in a month when they actually hire you. So, yeah, it is okay. Great question. Any other questions? Get all your questions down now while you guys got me. Not saying that you won't have access to me after, but ask all your questions now. All right, well, I'm going to assume that you guys are good to go when it comes to federal resumes, that all of your questions, all of your thoughts, all your comments and things have been cleared, and you know exactly what you need to do to develop yourself a resume or to update the resume that you already have. Another thing I'll say is make sure that you have a master federal resume, right? You have a master resume that you put everything that you've ever done on that resume. And as you build out resumes to tailor for other positions, because maybe you have a biology degree or a general degree, you're applying for certain jobs that one could be administrative and one could be field related, and those could potentially be two different resumes. So you always want to tailor your resume to fit the job you're applying for, but make sure you have a master resume that you never change. It's just the one that you always build on, and then you take information from that master one to build out on your tailored ones, okay? That way you don't ever have to think back, what did I do 5 years ago? What did I do 2 years ago? So always use that big master resume to just continue to build on. When would you be sending us presentation documents from today? We can possibly today, possibly. I think I might have a couple more meetings after this meeting, but Vanessa has the documents, and so she'll make sure she'll send them out to all the participants as well as the recording, so you guys can have something to kind of refer back to if need be. If not, then for sure by tomorrow, but you guys will get it soon. Okay. Any other questions before we close out? All right. So again, on Wednesday, we will cover USA jobs, because you guys do have two authorities that come with your certificate. So some of you will be hired through the DHA, others of you will not. So it's important for you to understand USA jobs and how it works. So we're going to cover USA jobs. We're also going to cover your certificate. I'm going to show you what the certificate looks like. I'm going to explain the certificate. You guys will know all that you need to know about your certificate. And we'll also talk about hiring processes. What does it look like? What does the process look like when you are going through the DHA process? And how does it differ when you're going through the applying through USA Jobs process? So we'll talk about hiring processes. We'll talk about upcoming hiring events, all things hiring on Wednesday. So I hope to see each and every one of you back on Wednesday. Don't wait on the recording, because you can't ask questions at real time, right? So make sure that you are in attendance on Wednesday. Thank you guys for attending today. Thank you guys for continuing to do great work in your RA position. I hope that you will continue even beyond today to do great work. I love hearing great success stories from you guys. So keep on doing what you're doing. If you need anything, let us know. But if not, we'll see you guys on Wednesday. So thanks. Bye-bye.